I first reached out to you about chatting about the boycott of King's Place, because it's one of the few recent boycotts where you can say, well, actually things changed.
Yeah.
What happened, and like why did you decide to stand in your power like that?
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, it was, I don't take credit for the success of that. I don't take credit for it shifting things at all. I think the momentum had been growing a little bit, like behind the scenes, before it got to my statement. So I was excited. I was really excited. I was doing going to do a year's residence at King's Place, and I was going to do a series of performances, including one new performance. And one way or another, I caught wind of another event that the King's Place venue was hosting later in the year, which would be during my residency. And this was it was billed as sort of a space science or space defense conference, but really, when you looked at the sponsors, it was like Lockheed Martin. It was an arms-based conference. And Space lasers. Yeah. There they are. They are real. I was alerted to this and obviously worried. And so various conversations were had about, before my residency was due to begin, it was like, is this definitely happening? Are you going to maybe look into this? Is this, can we not do this? Is there a way out of this? So that we were putting sort of not heavy pressure, but mild pressure set, to show that, I'm not really up for this. I'm not up for sharing the space, because it would have been within the same month as one of the performances that I was set to do there. And the more I looked into it, the more I was kind of really disappointed to learn that although on the surface it doesn't say explicitly, but the King's Place music programme is funded by their corporate hire. And so that money is directly going back into the pocket of an artist. Mm. And I didn't like that idea. I didn't feel comfortable doing that at all. So in the end, quite late in the day, to be fair, because we just hadn't got anywhere with our,
trying to be civil
behind the scenes things. And I wanted to do, that was an income for me that I, would have liked to have. But
with all due respect, you're not selling out the O2. So having a residency like that is probably quite financially significant in the scheme of a year of work you can do.
And all the work put into it leading up to that point by, my agent, my manager, the time put into work on contracts.
Did you have Maxine Peake lined up to be involved in that? Was that event?
There was going to be something that she featured in. Yeah, it was something that, like a commission that I'd already done, that we were going to represent it in a different space. I was really looking forward to having that. I was just so gutted that I didn't get to do any of those things. A whole year of scheduling that I had to just bin and then try and find things to replace
and other opportunities that would have come through, and you're like, well, I can't do that because I've got this residency.
All of that, because if you're lucky enough to be busy and working, then you have a 12-month, sometimes 24-month schedule ahead of plan, and you don't get much flexibility on that usually. So
had you ever taken a stand like that on anything before? Because I feel like turning up to a protest, and you've even got a lyric, haven't you? Which I did scribble down. The I'm too tired to protest this, but I'm too worried I'll regret this.
Yeah. 2016 sentiment. Yeah. No, I hadn't done anything to that scale. And obviously this is in a really aggressive time where there's multiple wars. There's some really, really devastating conflicts going on. Mm. And you can't really hide from this stuff. And if there's a chance to send a message through, then, I'll do it. Sometimes that's not even enough for people, like even me making my statement, I was very careful to just be, my statement was fairly general in that I don't want money from an arms, trading business. I don't want money from weapons that are used to kill children going into my bank account. Sorry. Not sorry. It's obvious to me, and it was obvious to everybody in my team. And of course it was a team decision. It wasn't just, I don't want to do that, because I'm, those people that work with me that put those things into their calendar, they were depending on income from it. All of those people had to lose out from it. And I know that, but it's a much bigger topic than that. But But yeah, it just felt like it was a no-brainer really. Like, I'm not going to do this.
What would you advise to someone who maybe finds themselves in a similar situation of ethically, I don't feel like this is right? Like, it sounds like you did the initial thing of, I'll speak to the organizers, I'll find out exactly what it is. Like, and then I guess you're like, well, I'm going to make a statement. Like, how hard do I go on it? Am I actually going to pull out completely? Am I just going to make a statement? Like, there's probably a few different stages from it. Was there anything that you sort of learned that if someone's listening to this, that's thinking, well, actually, I feel like maybe this is the time I make a stand?
Yeah, I just think it's instinct and gut, really. You have to just go on that. It's sometimes not as easy as that, though. I mean, like we've discussed, you know, musicians are usually not like millionaires, at least not in the circles I operate in. And, you know, you don't want to lose income. You don't want to lose the relationship with an arts organisation. It's an art, you know, a venue that I've always respected and enjoyed going to events there and stuff. That was another thing. It's like, I don't know if they'll want to work with me again now because I kind of had to publicly shame them. And when I say them, it's like, obviously there's people in that department that have to answer to a higher level of, you know, most of them don't want this either. But that's their jobs.
Yeah, like I can't imagine
it's really hard when you're in that middle ground position. And so, you know, there were a couple of artists who were also residents that year who didn't, you know, they didn't pull their residencies, and they did make statements, but they didn't pull out. And, you know, no shade on them at all. You do what you want to do. But I just felt like, because of the people involved in my circles and in my team, and the timing of it would have been like I expected when people caught wind, as they would because there was a letter going around, they would be protesting outside that building come October when the event was set to happen. And that would be exactly the point where I'd be walking in with my gear, you know, to do a show. And I just thought, that's, you know, I don't want to be part of that. And I have to make a stand so that, you know, if it helps to stop that from happening, then great.
I thought it was great. And I instantly was like, I'm going to buy some merch and I'm going to encourage other people too. And like I feel like so many people do sort of clicktivism, or like that's what they call it, when you just like share something you can click on and feel like you've taken part in the protest.
Guilty of that then, a lot.
But I think actively like losing out on income, not like you said, not just for you, but the village of people that support you. And it was a really big, brave thing.